Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Ben, and this is 3T's Mobile Automotive Repair. Today is Friday. It is actually the end of our month for us, which is the end of May. And you know how I like to do things. The end of the month, I like to show you all of our revenue, all of our costs, every bit of information I possibly can. But I have something that I've never really shown you before, and that is a complete spreadsheet in all of our profit margins and where we can actually track to make sure we're making a good profit and our margins are in the right place. I'll show you where I got this information and why I think it's useful and will help you make sure you're making a profit. So let's go get in the office and let's check some numbers. All right, y'all, welcome back into the office. Let's just dive right into it here. Couple things I want to say first before we really get into it is this is something new that is not my information. This is information that I found through some people that know a ton more than I know in this industry. And when I say that, I'm talking about some podcasts. One in particular here is called Changing the Industry. They had a gentleman on almost exactly a year ago, May of 2024. His name is Cecil Bullard, and I don't know exactly who he is. I have seen him in the past, but he's got videos where he talks about how to come up with proper numbers and the proper percentages and stuff like that. They had about an 8 or 9 video series of all of this information. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this information to you is last week I had made an ending of my end of week video talking about how the week was and the how it was going, and I was walking outside. So if you know who Lucas Underwood is, every video he posts just about, he's walking around outside. So I was doing the same thing, so I tagged him in it. I've spoken to him a few times in the past. Very nice guy and very, very knowledgeable. Along with his counterpart on the podcast, forgive me if I get your name wrong, but I believe his name is David Rowan. Their podcast together is just, it's great. So the information I had mentioned, he had mentioned that I should be paying attention to my gross profit per hour, which I agree. I've never really paid attention to it because I don't know what I should technically 100% add in there outside of my typical parts and service labor, and where I should do my math on that to drill it down properly. He did reach out and offer for me to call him whenever I feel is necessary, and I'll do that here soon. They're up in the Tools Expo up north this weekend, so not making phone calls and bothering anybody. But when he mentioned that to me is what brought me to reevaluate where I was in my company to make sure I was really in the right spot. So as I was researching the gross profit per hour, I happened to stumble across the videos from about a year ago. There was like 8 or 9 videos in a series there with that Cecil Bullard. And this is the information that I got that we're going to talk about now. So this is not my information. It is according to Cecil and how he does everything industry standard. Now, again, you're talking about a brick and mortar shop. They're not talking about my crappy little mobile service here in Podunk Town. But I am very pleased to say that even though I haven't been using their margins, I was nearly dead perfect, spot on with their margins. And that made me very happy because that means that everything I've been striving to do the past 5.5 years or so has been great. And everything that I've been putting back into my company and all the time that I have exerted doing this means I've been doing it correctly. So without further ado, let's just jump into it and let's see where we are for our month and then look at those numbers. All right, so right here is TechMetric. It shows 69 total ROs for the month with hours presented and sold at 109.3. That gives us 114.31 in our effective labor rate. That's with an average per RO sale of $340. I'm not going to say the cents because it's a pain in the butt. Average per RO sale of $340 with a gross profit margin of about 62.5%. That's really freaking good. You can look at the average per RO profit and the gross sales if you want per hour. I don't look at this gross profit per hour because I want to make sure it's perfect yet before I move on to that. So next, what did we do for revenue? We did $23,481 in the month of May for our gross revenue and sales. I'll tell you the cost and everything on the next page. So just know we did $23,481. So now let's go look at the spreadsheet that I made. So if I draw your attention to the right-hand side of this spreadsheet, all of the percentages that are in red, those are the percentages that they recommend you should have in each column divided by your gross revenue. So that way every single month, the numbers will change if you base it on trying to strive for this percentage. So if you look at the top where it says gross revenue, that's what I just told you, $23,481. I had a total labor sales of $12,494. That's 53% of my gross revenue. They recommend 55%. That's pretty good. I had part sales of $10,500. That ended up being just under 45%, and that's what they want. So I'm really close to being perfectly on track on my sales side on how I'm setting up my margins. Next is our cost of goods sold. So you have cost of goods sold on labor and parts. The labor, $3,484. I was right at the 15% mark that they recommend. My cost of goods sold on parts, same thing, really good. I was at $5,330. That's 22%, and they want 20. I'm very freaking happy with where that sits. And then I have my gross profit margin. That's the only number in all of my years of doing this that I ever really paid attention to. I said, if I'm doing 60% at the end on my gross profit, I always thought I was doing good. And you are. You are doing good if you're marking up your parts the right way and you're charging the right labor. The thing is I never realized or paid attention to make sure that the labor and the parts were within their own section to make sure I was really making a good profit. Because you can have companies that you can do a 60% margin, but you've got, let's say 20,000 in labor sales and only 3,000 in parts. You're not going to have much of a margin there on the part side. So you get what I'm saying. Like, it's a good mix of how it is, and we're in with some good numbers. So then we come down onto our next line, which gives us what our actual gross profit would be. The 62%, that's $14,666 for the month. So now what, right? We have a bunch of expenses. You guys know that I always tell you my expenses are around $8,500 a month, which is still 100% true. But we need to break that apart. We've never really broken that apart for you before, and now we will. And it's not broken apart much. You guys know what the individual costs of all the different things are because I've gone over what those things actually cost me. But you have different spots, right? So here you have fixed expenses. So every month, my fixed expenses, the way I have it right now, which again, I could probably drill down a little more, but I have that as in everything I pay for except for my front office staff payroll. So that would be $5,245, and it comes out to 22%, and they ask for 25. Now, like I said, this is the first time I've ever done this, so I'm not freaking pulling your leg or yanking your chain or anything. This is really what it is. My front end staff pay. This is loaded pay. Same with my labor sales, or my labor cost. It's loaded. And when I say loaded, that means in my system, I have me as a technician listed as $32 an hour. That's what it costs the company. I really take home less than $32 per hour in reality dollars. Let's just say, these are not the right numbers, but let's just say I pay my technician $27 an hour. Loaded is $32 because you have to cover FICA, Medicare, and FUTA, maybe something else as far as payroll tax. And then you have to cover if you're going to be paying for vacation time and things like that. And I take vacation time. So technically I need to pay for that. So that's a loaded labor amount. Those numbers I do need to drill down further on, and we will in another month or so. Once my wife gets here, we sit down with my accountant and I really hash this all out to get it even better than the way it is now. This is just where we sit at the moment. So $3,400 on the front end staff. It's a little high. It's at 14%. They're recommending 10%, but I'm okay with that because originally I'll do that after. So the next line is owner pay. So they say that the owner is allowed to take a withdrawal from the company of about 10% every month. Well, there's your number right there, $2,348. And that's when you get down to your net profit, right? So your net profit on this month at 20% is $4,695. So $4,700 in net profit after every expense that the company has. Almost $5,000. That's fucking amazing. For some crappy little mobile service that I run, $5,000 extra, that's awesome. Now, some of you are probably hitting that point saying, that sucks, you only get $5,000. You're missing the point. You're missing some stuff. Let's go back to what I was about to talk about before, right? I don't take a lot of money out of this company for multiple reasons, right? I only pay myself $40,000 a year. And that's what's included in that front end staff, okay? I do that because I don't need the money. My wife still works. For the past 5 years, I never really needed the money a lot. That's all I needed to pay our home bills and to live relatively comfortably. We weren't paying any extra debt off or doing anything in the past couple of years. The first years, we didn't do anything. We just trying to figure it out. But the past 2.5 years, 3 years or so here, we haven't been paying off any home debt. We've been focusing on the company, making sure we could build it to where we needed to grow. So, being that I only took the $40,000 a year, I did not take the other numbers, right? So in reality, and this is another reason why, once my wife gets here, I'm owner, she's secretary. She will take home that $40,000 as the front end staff. That's the $3,416. I will take home the cost of goods on the labor. That's my flat rate pay for the month. And then I will take my 10% owner draw, which is $2,300. That's a total of $9,250 a month that we would take home to have our life, pay our bills, save money, pay off debt, do what we want. That's pretty good money for this little company, I think. I think that's really good money. So that's what, $9,000 times 12? That's $108,000 that we get to take home from the company. I'm pretty happy about that. That's not that bad. So that leaves that last net 20%. That's that $5,000 or $4,700 that's sitting there. That's what my company holds on to. My company holds that at the end of the month, and we decide what to do with it. We can either leave it there, pay off debt, buy new tools, reinvest back in, do something. So for the past 3 years or so, I have been leaving the net profit, the owner pay, and the cost of goods labor in the company. I have been giving it back to the company and reinvesting and reinvesting and reinvesting and reinvesting. Just because that's what I needed to do, and that's what I felt I wanted to do. Because like I said, I didn't need to take it home. I could have, and I could have saved it, but we're trying to build a company. We're trying to build a future. And I think we're doing things in a way that nobody else is doing it in the mobile world. So that was what I chose to do. Now, when she comes home, this is how we're going to do things. A little closer to that. My flat rate pay, her front end pay, and then the owner pay, right? That's how we're going to do things. So I hope that makes sense. That's really simple stuff. And I can't express to you how happy and excited I am that my numbers are actually that good and that close to being what this gentleman that trains shops to do these things. I'm just very happy that my numbers were there. And I don't know, man, it's awesome. I feel amazing that this is where my company is going. Now, obviously, not every month's going to be this great. I'm going to have some months where I'm going to struggle, but that is the whole point of why I've reinvested back into my company. And so like this month here, I'm going to take the 20% net profit, which is $4,700, and the owner pay. I've already spent that $3,800 in the cost of goods labor because I put money into the company already this month. But that's about $7,000 that I'm going to put into the savings account for the company this month because I need to have it there. I need a cushion. I want a cushion. I want to be protected. I want to be able to have cash on hand when I need it. So it's just my way of doing things, and I really appreciate it that way. So one last calculation that we need to look at here is if you look at your fixed expenses, how much do I need to make in the month in order to cover those fixed expenses at 25%? Because our fixed expenses are 25% of our gross revenue. So what you would do, so like in my case, my fixed expenses are $5,245. If you divide that by 0.25, it comes out to just under $21,000. So that means my $5,245 is 25% of $20,980. So that means if I continue to keep my fixed expenses at that dollar amount, I have to sell $21,000 a month in order to net the dollar amount I want at the end of the month. That's how I break it down. That's how you break it down to get to that ending point of 20%. So if you're looking at your numbers and you're like, oh, I've only got $2,000 in fixed expenses because you pay yourself based on your performance, you divide it by 0.25, and that would be $8,000 in total revenue you'd have to sell for the month. So again, I've always told you guys my expenses are way too high. I don't like that they're that high, but another reason why I have been telling you I've been reinvesting back into my company because I've been effectively chunking money at that stuff, paying it off while still saving money. So that's really about it. Again, it's not my information. My information was just put into there, and I feel it's a very, very good representation. And if you know your numbers, try it out. Try the math and see how you are on those numbers and see if you are really making a profit. And maybe you have to adjust how you're doing things in order to properly make the money you need to make so you can grow. Because that's the whole point, right? So like I know some people are like, $21,000, that's freaking nuts. You got to do that every month just to survive. No, that's so I can pay myself an extremely hefty salary and put a good amount of money into the bank every single month for the company. Because don't forget, the company pays for that beautiful 2024 Silverado truck I have out back. It pays for all these freaking tools I get to have, all this cool stuff that I get to do all the time, all these places I get to go for training events and things like that. The company takes care of that, and it's part of that. That's where that net goes. It goes to funding those things, not the truck. The truck is part of the fixed expense, but that, because you can look at the truck as your rent if you have a building, right? If you're looking to get in somewhere and you got a building, your rent would be part of that. So would your insurance, all those things. So anyway, I'm done. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it comes out the way I mean it to come out, and I hope you guys learned something from it, or at least if you got questions, leave them down below. I will try to tag Changing the Industry podcast in the bottom. I don't know if I'll know how to do it or if I can do it. If I can, I'll tag them down below. But until then, I appreciate you guys. If you like what we're doing, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.